Before you fall asleep, there's a quiet moment most people overlook. That fragile instant when the house goes silent, the lights dim, and your heart begins to whisper what it's been hiding all day. It's in that space between exhaustion and rest that your soul starts to tell the truth. Maybe that's where you are now, lying there, staring at the ceiling or into the dark, trying to understand why, even after a full day, there's still an ache you can't name. It's here, in this silence, that God waits for you. Not in the noise of your routines, nor in the rush of your hours, but in this moment when your soul is too tired to pretend anymore. Maybe your mind is still crowded. Worries, memories, regrets. Maybe you're replaying what you said, what you didn't say, what you wish you had done differently. Deep down, you feel that restlessness that doesn't come from your body, but from your soul, the kind that stirs when the heart longs for peace and can't find it. But true rest doesn't come from having all the answers. It begins with surrender, and surrender starts when you admit that you can't keep carrying it all on your own. There's a quiet beauty in that moment, because when everything seems to slip out of your control, that's when God begins to move. He doesn't barge in, he waits. He waits for you to stop, to breathe, and to whisper, even if softly, "Lord, I can't do this alone anymore." That's the kind of prayer heaven understands fastest. Surrender isn't giving up, it's yielding, and there's a deep difference between the two. Giving up is losing hope. Yielding is trusting something greater than yourself. When you yield, you acknowledge that there's a God who sees what you can't, who understands what you don't, and who's already taken care of what keeps you awake at night. Every breath is a reminder of that. You're alive, and the simple act of breathing is proof that God still has plans for you. With every heartbeat, he whispers, "I'm not finished yet." The heart that keeps beating bears witness to a purpose that's still unfolding. Even if life looks different now, even if the path turned out nothing like you imagined, God is still writing. He doesn't tear pages, he rewrites stories. So before you close your eyes, talk to him. You don't need fancy words or long sentences. Just speak. Tell him what hurts. Talk about the fears, the guilt, the emptiness. Tell him what's been keeping you up, what makes you doubt. God isn't offended by your weakness. He understands it. And it's in that very weakness that his strength becomes most visible. You don't have to be perfect to pray. You just have to be honest. Close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. Picture your hands open as if you're releasing something too heavy to hold. Imagine placing every thought, every memory that still hurts in those hands. And now see them lifted toward God. He's there, present, silent, looking at you with love and patience. His voice isn't loud, but it's steady. It doesn't come to condemn you, it comes to free you. And what he says is simple. Trust me, I'm here. Maybe you've been trying to fix everything. People, situations, emotions, trying to make sense of what seems senseless. But there are things only time and grace can heal. Some wounds belong in God's hands, not yours. While you've been asking why, God's been preparing the what for. God's timing is never rushed, but it's always right. He's never late. He's ripening what needs to bloom. And sometimes that process is painful, but it's through that very pain that you grow, learn, and transform. So tonight, don't fight sleep. Let rest find you. Close your eyes knowing the world can wait. Life can pause. You can rest. Rest is an act of faith. It's saying, without words, I trust you, even when I don't understand. While you sleep, God works. He doesn't sleep, doesn't get distracted, doesn't disappear. He stays, alert, shaping the unseen, weaving answers, still taking form. Tomorrow, things might not look different at first glance, but inside you, something will already have shifted. Because every time you choose to trust, your spirit grows stronger. And that's the kind of faith the enemy fears most. Quiet faith. the kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that stands firm even in the dark. That's the faith that turns nights into dawn. So before you drift off, take one more deep breath. Think about everything you're carrying, the fears, the hopes, the plans, and place them all in God's hands, not hurriedly, but peacefully. He knows exactly what to do with what you no longer know how to carry. Tomorrow will come, but it doesn't need to start right now. Right now is the time to rest, to trust, to surrender. God is in the room with you. He hasn't left. He hasn't forgotten. He hasn't punished you. He's here. His presence is gentle, almost imperceptible, but real. And when you finally fall asleep, you'll be wrapped in a peace that doesn't come from this world, but from heaven itself. So rest. You are not alone. There is a God who keeps watch while you sleep. Sleep in peace. You are safe in His hands.
There's a kind of silence in the middle of the night that doesn't exist at any other time of day. It's the kind of silence that reveals, the one that doesn't ask for words, only presence. When the world falls asleep, it's as if the heart finally gets to speak what's been kept quiet for hours. And it's in that very moment, when everything fades around you, that God turns on the deepest light of all, the awareness that you have never been alone. Do you feel it? There's an invisible sound within the stillness of the night, the sound of God's own breath, whispering close, reminding you that life goes on even when everything seems still. It's in the calm of the night that He does His greatest work, not for others to see, but within you. Maybe silence scares you. Maybe it feels heavy, like it drags back all the things you've tried to forget, old memories, regrets, echoes from the past. But silence doesn't come to punish. It comes to heal. It's the mirror of the soul. It shows you what still hurts, but also what still beats. God speaks through this kind of silence, not with noise, but with impressions. He doesn't have to shout to be heard. He simply touches the conscience of the one who seeks Him. And in that gentle touch, the heart begins to realize that peace isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of God. Maybe you've spent most of your life believing you had to be strong all the time. Society teaches that. Life demands it. People expect it. But God doesn't. God never asked you to be unshakable. He only asked you to be sincere. He isn't impressed by masks or offended by tears. He knows every crack in your soul, and still He chooses to dwell within them. When you hide what you feel, you're not protecting yourself. You're distancing yourself from healing. That's why tonight He's inviting you to hide nothing. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Feel the air going in and out. Every breath is a reminder God is still breathing life into you. The same breath that shaped the world is sustaining your lungs right now. It's the kind of detail that hurry never notices, but silence always reveals. In the dark, when everything seems motionless, the invisible is happening. The heart is being rearranged, the spirit is being mended, the mind is being washed clean of old thoughts. God's peace works quietly, like the tide that rises without a sound, like the sunrise that doesn't need applause. Maybe you don't feel anything right now, but don't mistake silence for absence. God is there, even when there is no emotion, even when there are no tears. He doesn't need to prove His presence. He simply is. Sometimes it feels like you've drifted away from God, but in truth, you've drifted away from yourself. And prayer is the way back. Not a ritual, but a reconnection. Prayer isn't to remind God of you, it's to remind you of God. It's amazing how the greatest revelations happen in stillness. It was in silence that Samuel heard his name. It was in solitude that Elijah recognized the whisper. It was in the darkness of a prison that Paul discovered the power of grace. And now, in the quiet of your night, God is preparing something similar, a subtle, transforming encounter. Breathe again. Let your body rest. Let your mind slow down. You don't need to understand what's happening. Just trust that the Spirit is working in places your eyes can't see. Don't fight the silence, embrace it. It's where heaven speaks most clearly. There's a kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. The peace that comes when you accept what you can't change and release what you no longer need to hold. That's the peace Jesus promised when he said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." He never said he'd take away the weight of the world. He promised to teach you how to walk beneath it lightly. God doesn't just want to ease your mind. He wants to quiet your soul. You don't need to rush to fix what only time can heal. You don't need to understand every why. Some questions are answered best by silence. Remember, darkness isn't a sign of abandonment. It's part of the process. The seed grows in the dark. The wine matures in the dark. Deep rest happens in the dark. God hasn't left you. He's nurturing something inside you. And while your soul struggles to realign, he's watching you tenderly, not as a judge, but as a patient father who knows that growing hurts, trusting costs, and waiting wears you down. But he also knows this: what's being formed inside you is stronger than what was broken. Something sacred is happening right now, even if your eyes can't see it. It's the Spirit of God moving in the very places you thought could never bloom again. And slowly, a different kind of peace begins to rise. It's not loud or sudden, it's quiet. It's the kind of peace that makes you take a deep breath and whisper, "It's going to be okay." Not because circumstances changed, but because your heart began to trust again. That's the difference between sleeping and resting. Sleep is physical, rest is spiritual. And God wants to give you rest, not just sleep. So before your body surrenders to sleep, speak to Him one more time, with the honesty of someone too tired to pretend anymore. Say, "Lord, I trust you. Even when I don't feel it, I trust you. Even when I don't see it, I trust you. Even when everything seems still, I know your love is moving." That kind of prayer, whispered in the dark, is more powerful than 1,000 words spoken in daylight, because faith that endures the night is the faith that triumphs at dawn. Now, allow yourself to rest. Let the Holy Spirit wrap around you like an invisible blanket, bringing comfort, warmth, and peace. Feel His presence filling the room, touching every corner of your soul, untangling old knots, quieting the inner voices. You don't have to do anything else. Just be. Just breathe. Just allow. God is here, and the silence that once felt heavy now feels light, because it has turned into presence. Sleep not in a hurry, but with purpose. Sleep knowing that while you rest, heaven is at work. Sleep knowing that God's love doesn't depend on your performance. It depends on His faithfulness. And when the morning comes, you won't be the same, because every soul that surrenders to God's peace awakens renewed. Sleep in peace. You are in the arms of the one who never sleeps.
There are moments when the heart feels too tired to believe. It's not a lack of faith, it's exhaustion.
It's as if the soul has walked for so long, carrying an invisible weight that even the act of waiting becomes heavy. You pray, you believe, you try to trust, but some days, weariness speaks louder than hope. And it's precisely on those days that God draws closest, not with ready-made answers, but with His presence. Not with quick solutions, but with a kind of comfort only those who have cried can understand. Maybe you've tried to hide it, pretending to be fine in front of others. Maybe you've repeated phrases like, "Everything's under control," while inside, your heart was silently screaming. But God hears what you never said. He understands the sounds no one else notices. Tonight's prayer is for the weary heart. The heart that's tried everything, that's waited too long, that's believed and been disappointed, yet still hasn't given up. Take a deep breath and allow yourself for a moment not to be what the world expects of you. Allow yourself to simply be someone who needs to rest in the love of God. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is admitting you have no strength left, because it's at that point of surrender that God's power begins to move. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Jesus isn't calling the strong. He's calling the exhausted, those who've tried to handle everything alone and now just want to breathe in peace. So come, just as you are, with a heart full of doubts, tired eyes, and empty hands. God doesn't ask you to come whole. He takes care of rebuilding what time has broken. There's something profound in the stories of faith. No one ever found God in comfort. Moses met Him in the desert. David found Him in caves. Elijah heard Him after his breakdown. Paul felt Him in prison. And maybe you're about to discover that your own desert is also a sacred place. The desert isn't the end. It's the training ground of trust. It's where God teaches us to depend not on what we feel, but on who He is. And He is faithful, even when you don't understand, even when it feels like your prayers go unanswered. Faith isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to trust despite it. Think of the times you thought you wouldn't make it, and you did. Remember when the time felt unbearable, yet here you are. That's grace, not merit. God sustained you even when you didn't realize it. Maybe your heart can't see it now, but every tear you've shed has been collected. Every silent prayer has been heard. Every sleepless night has been noticed. Nothing you've gone through has been forgotten. God is a God who works in the unseen. He builds His greatest miracles in the dark when no one's watching, even when you doubt. That's why His silence doesn't mean absence. It means preparation. While you pray, He arranges the invisible. While you wait, He's paving paths you can't walk yet. While you rest, He's awakening what has been asleep. But for that to happen, you have to let go of control. And maybe that's the hardest part, letting God be God. Because the human heart wants to understand, to predict, to hold the wheel. But sometimes faith requires the opposite, to release, surrender, and trust. You don't need to understand how tomorrow will work out. You just need to know that the God who brought you this far won't leave you now. There's a peace that comes when you accept not having all the answers. It arrives slowly, like dawn. First, the horizon brightens, then the details appear. That's how God works. He lights the way little by little, just enough for the next step. Breathe. You don't need to see the whole future, only the next step. And if that next step is to rest, then rest. God isn't in a hurry. He works in eternity.
You live by days. He lives by purpose. His timing is different, but always perfect. How many times have you looked back and realized that what seemed like a delay was actually protection? How many closed doors later revealed themselves as deliverance? How many no's turned into better paths? Trust is built when you look back and see He never failed. So maybe your prayer this night doesn't have to be a request. Maybe it just needs to be a thank you. Thank you for still being here. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for knowing that even tired, your heart still believes. Gratitude is the deepest form of rest, because when you give thanks, you release. And when you release, God takes over. Now close your eyes again. Imagine yourself before God not as someone asking, but as someone surrendering. Picture yourself placing everything that weighs you down into His hands: fear, guilt, anxiety, the past. Lay it all at His feet, one thing at a time, until your heart feels lighter. Feel the air shift inside you. Feel the lightness of not having to carry everything alone. That's what true faith is. Allowing yourself to be led even when you don't know where the wind will blow. And God is leading you even when you can't see it. Sometimes He doesn't change the situation, but He changes you within it. And suddenly, what once hurt now teaches. What once paralyzed now strengthens. What once frightened now matures you. His presence doesn't erase your scars, it turns them into testimonies. You haven't wasted time in God's waiting rooms. You've been shaped there. Waiting isn't punishment, it's preparation. And when the right time comes, because it always comes, everything will make sense. But for now, rest here. Don't run from the silence. Don't resist the weariness. Rest is sacred too. It's the altar where the soul learns to trust again. Speak to God softly. You don't need fancy words, just honest ones. Say, Lord, I surrender what I don't understand. I trust your timing. I rest in your hands. And stay like that for a moment, just feeling the presence that fills the emptiness. Let grace cover you like an invisible blanket. It covers the flaws, the fears, the uncertainties. You're being restored even now. The Holy Spirit is reorganizing what seemed lost. Healing is happening in places you don't even have names for. And when sleep comes, let it be deep and restoring. Not as an escape, but as an act of faith. Because sometimes sleeping is the most beautiful way to say, Lord, I trust you to take care of everything while I rest. So sleep like that tonight, with your heart surrendered, with your mind at peace, with your soul safe. You don't need to understand tomorrow. The God who wrote eternity is already in it. Sleep in peace. And when morning comes, may the first thing your heart feel not be the weight of the day, but the lightness of grace. Because true faith doesn't remove the storm. It teaches you to rest within the storm. And when a new day rises, you'll realize the weariness was holy because it led you back into the arms of God.
There is something mysterious about the morning that comes after a long night of prayer. It isn't just the sun that rises, it's the soul that awakens. Even if nothing around you has changed, something within you begins to move differently. It's subtle, almost invisible, like the first beam of light slipping through the curtain. But there is life there. There is resurrection. God does that. He turns rest into renewal,
silence into revelation, exhaustion into fresh strength. The night was not a loss, it was planting. And now, what was watered with tears begins to sprout in peace. You wake up different. Not euphoric, but calm. Not with all the answers, but with the quiet certainty that you no longer need them. It's as if your heart finally understands that the love of God doesn't depend on circumstances. It remains constant, even when the world shifts. Healing never happens all at once. It happens in layers. God touches one wound at a time, carefully, as someone who restores something precious. He doesn't break to repair. He cleans, realigns, renews. And he does it patiently because what is true takes time to bloom. There's a silent promise in the air. Behold, I make all things new. Revelation 21:5. That's the language of divine restoration, not shouted, but whispered. God doesn't need to impress. He transforms. And often, he starts not by fixing what's around you, but by healing what's within you. It's strange how when the soul begins to heal, the same circumstances start to look different. The problem still exists, but the despair doesn't. The waiting continues, but the heart feels anchored. The pain remains in memory, but no longer rules. That's what the presence of God does. It doesn't always change the scene. It changes the one watching it. You begin to see the world with washed eyes. The simple things regain their beauty. A new day, a bird's song, the laughter of someone you love, all become testimonies of his goodness. And slowly, the faith that had fallen asleep rises again, not as a shout, but as a gentle whisper. It's still worth trusting. God wastes nothing you've lived through. Nothing was in vain. Not the pain, not the waiting, not the tears. Everything fits into a purpose you don't yet fully see. What now seems like fragments will one day form a mosaic. So don't rush out of the process. Haste is the enemy of healing. God works at the pace of eternity, and what he builds will not be undone by time. You may still feel traces of the storm, and that's okay. Wounds heal slowly, but what matters is that they are healing now. That in itself is a miracle. What once made you cry no longer weighs the same. What once seemed impossible now feels only a matter of time. That's the sign of a heart being restored. And when the heart heals, the rest follows. The mind slows down. Sleep comes lighter. The eyes begin to shine again. God restores not only the spirit, he restores the whole being. Close your eyes and give thanks. Thank him for the pain that made you gentler. Thank him for the losses that revealed what truly matters. Thank him even for the emptiness. It made room for grace to enter. Gratitude is the soil where restoration grows. Those who give thanks transform pain into wisdom and time into testimony. God is inviting you now to walk lightly, not trying to control anymore, but to trust. Not blaming yourself, but forgiving yourself. Not fearing tomorrow, but resting in the love that sustains you. Mature faith isn't the kind that demands constant miracles. It's the kind that recognizes quiet ones every single day. The very fact that you're here, breathing, feeling, listening, is proof that his love has never left you. You survived days you thought you wouldn't endure. And now you're learning not just to survive, but to live. That's grace in motion. There's a verse that echoes in this moment. But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles.
They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Isaiah 40:31. God promised renewal, and He keeps His word. Notice He never promised the absence of weariness. He promised strength to continue even when tired, wings to rise above the hard places, and His companionship even when your steps grow slow. And He's doing that right now. As you listen, pray, or simply breathe, the Holy Spirit is breathing new strength into you. It's subtle, but it's real. You'll feel, little by little, your heart warming again, your mind clearing, your soul expanding. His presence is like sunlight after rain, not forceful, but gently overwhelming. God is restoring your confidence, and when confidence is restored, faith blooms again. Faith isn't an emotion, it's a daily choice to look at God instead of the fear. So today, choose again. Choose to believe that promises still live. Choose to believe that what was broken will be rebuilt. Choose to believe you're not alone in this process, because the same God who sustained you in the dark is now the one lighting your path. He wants to teach you to live not reacting to fear, but responding to peace, not searching for proof of love, but resting in the love already proven on the cross. And as you understand this, your heart finds a new rhythm, a rhythm of grace, of trust, of serenity. It's as if your soul begins to breathe in tune with heaven itself. You realize you no longer need to chase approval. You are already accepted. You no longer have to live in the past. You've been forgiven. You no longer have to fear the future. It's already in God's hands. That is spiritual freedom. It's the state of those who not only believe in God, but rest in Him. And at night, when silence returns, it will no longer be threatening. It will be sacred. Because now silence has become home, and God dwells there. So sleep as one who carries a holy secret, that restoration is already happening, even if unseen. God is rebuilding you piece by piece until nothing inside you has to pretend it's fine anymore. You are loved, not for what you do, but for who you are. And that love is the foundation of your healing. Let that certainty cradle you now. Feel your body release its weight, your heart slow down, your mind open, and whisper softly, Lord, I receive your renewal. I let go of what no longer serves me. I embrace the peace you offer. And in that moment, something shifts within. Your soul understands what words still can't express. Life is being restored. You are being prepared for the new. The same God who sustained you in the dark is now teaching you how to walk in the light. And this light doesn't come from outside. It shines from within. Rest in peace. You are being healed. And with every breath, heaven is working on your behalf.
There is something sacred about waking up after a night surrendered into God's hands. It's not only the body that awakens, it's the spirit that rises. The day begins differently when the soul has learned to rest in His presence. What once felt heavy now seems lighter. What once brought fear now inspires faith. Not because the world changed, but because your vision did. Last night's prayer was not just a request, it was a seed. And every seed, when placed in the right soil, grows in the right time. What was whispered between you and God in the darkness is now being answered. In subtle gestures, in small providences, in coincidences that are anything but chance. God works like that. Silently, faithfully, deeply. He moves in the margins, in the details, in the quiet in-between spaces of daily life. While you slept, heaven was moving. While you rested, angels were preparing paths. While you surrendered, He was rebuilding. Now it's time to rise with lightness of heart. Not to run, but to walk with awareness. Not to control, but to trust. There is a new rhythm within you, the rhythm of grace. Grace is the love of God in motion. It finds you where you are, sustains you where you stand, and leads you where you're meant to be. It doesn't depend on merit or effort. It is a gift, a favor, a constant presence. Today, as the day begins, something in you aligns again with heaven. You start to see that faith isn't an escape from reality. It's a deeper way of perceiving it. Faith is seeing God in the ordinary, hearing His voice in the pauses, feeling His presence in the quiet. It doesn't pull you out of the world, it teaches you how to walk through it differently. That new posture is trust. You no longer need to fear what's ahead because you know who walks with you. You no longer need to prove your worth because you've been chosen. You no longer need to carry the burden of being enough, for grace is enough for you. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. These are not cheap words of comfort. They are divine revelation. They remind you that you don't need to be flawless to be loved, nor perfect to be used. God turns your weakness into the stage of His strength. What you call failure, He calls space to act. And when the heart understands that, life changes. Fear of failure gives way to freedom to try. The guilt of the past dissolves in the mercy of the present. And the future stops being a threat, it becomes a promise. God is leading you into a new season, but this newness isn't only external, it begins within. It begins when you decide to look at today with eyes of faith, not suspicion. When you learn to give thanks before you see the result. When you choose to trust even when the winds still blow. That's what separates those who merely survive from those who blossom. The first resists time. The second learns from it. And you are blooming. Silently, yes, but with roots deeper than ever. There is no need to rush. The time of grace is the time of maturity. And spiritual maturity begins when the heart stops asking why and starts asking for what purpose. Every pain had meaning. Every loss carried instruction. Every detour brought correction. God wastes no story. What you've lived will become material for comforting others. The scars that still ache today will one day heal others tomorrow. So don't curse the path. It brought you here. And here, right where you stand, is the very place where God begins something new. Breathe deeply. Feel the weight slowly lifting, your soul expanding, your heart making room again for love, for joy, for hope. Everything God began in you, He will complete. Scripture promises it. He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Philippians 1:6. That's the certainty that sustains you now. What God starts, He finishes. No promise is left halfway, no purpose forgotten. He is faithful until the end. So walk today without fear, not with the anxiety of one who needs to understand everything, but with the peace of one who trusts the one who does. What lies ahead may be uncertain, but the one who goes with you is eternal. The journey of faith is not about seeing, it's about remaining. It's walking even when the ground feels unsteady, and resting even when the future feels far away. And as you walk, God paves the road beneath your feet. Sometimes all you need is one step, not to arrive, but to prove that you still trust. And with each step, grace meets you again. Today, allow yourself to begin anew, with a light heart. No matter how many times you've tried before, God never grows tired of starting over with you. His mercies are new every morning, and this morning is proof of that. Great is your faithfulness. Let those words echo like a song inside your soul, because God's love never wears out, never fails, never delays. He is constant. He is the solid rock when everything else shifts. And that steadfastness allows you to smile again, to dream again, to believe again. Faith doesn't shield you from pain. It teaches you to walk through it without losing yourself. You were healed to heal, restored to serve, comforted to comfort. What God did within you isn't just for you. It's for the world that will glimpse His grace through your eyes. There are lives that will be touched simply because you chose to keep going. Hearts that will be reached because you decided not to give up. Stories that will be changed because your faith remained alive. And that is the most beautiful miracle of all, when God's love in you begins to heal others. You become a living testimony that peace is possible after the storm, that hope can rise after loss, that light wins even when the night seemed endless. And then life, that same life that once hurt you, begins to embrace you again. God returns laughter, gentleness, and wonder for simple things. The sunrise, the scent of coffee, a breeze on your skin. The simple act of being alive, everything becomes a miracle again. And you finally understand. The miracle was never external. The true miracle was always internal. A heart that keeps believing even after everything. That is the victory of mature faith. It doesn't depend on circumstances. It depends on relationship. And your relationship with God is now deeper, realer, stronger. Once you prayed to escape pain, now you pray to find meaning in it. Once you asked for the storm to stop, now you've learned to dance in the rain. That is complete transformation. You didn't just survive, you were renewed. Close your eyes one more time. Feel your body calm, your mind light, your spirit awake, and say with simplicity, Lord, thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for teaching me to trust, for restoring me, for making me new. I give you this new day, this new season, this new life. Guide my steps, direct my thoughts, and let everything I do today reflect your love. Now open your eyes and see, the day is breaking, and with it, so are you. Walk in peace, speak with love, listen with attention, live with purpose. Because those healed by grace live differently, and those who live differently reveal God without even needing words. You are ready. Ready for the new, ready for the day, ready to live faith not only as prayer, but as breath. God is with you, now and always. Sleep in peace when the night returns, live in peace when the day dawns. And remember, the soul that trusts in God never loses its rest, for it dwells where love is constant.